Amazing revelation. Janitor's three-word warning saved a billionaire from an incredible 5.5B mistake. In the heart of New York City, the fluorescent lights of Alex Thompson's sprawling office illuminated the tension that thrummed in the air. A billionaire tech mogul, he was on the verge of what felt like a miraculous $5.5 billion acquisition. Yet as the world outside buzzed with promise, Alex felt an insatiable emptiness chipping away at him. Hours of reviewing spreadsheets left his mind racing, drowning in numbers, desperately seeking signals of success amidst the chaos. He could hear the laughs of his family at gatherings, feel the comfort of connection drift further away, only to be replaced by the urgent clamor of Wall Street's elite. Across the polished floors, James Rivera, a diligent janitor in his 50s, silently navigated the shadows. The immigrant's journey to the United States had stripped him of much, remolded him into a man who found dignity in an unassuming role. As he brushed past the high-powered consultants, he couldn't miss the mounting tension. Words like loss, failure, and critical slipped from the lips of Alex's advisors, cluttering the air like an ominous storm. All the while, James caught a glimmer of negligence, a single vital document left behind, one that could be the key to unraveling Alex's empire. Torn between his position and a rare chance to intervene, James's heart pounded with trepidation. He couldn't simply turn a blind eye, not when so much was at stake. With a deep breath, he pushed open the door and stepped into the chaos of the boardroom. "Trust your gut," he urged, his voice cutting through the urgency like a cold wind. Time slowed as his words reverberated off polished walls, challenging the facade of confidence that surrounded Alex. Uncertainty flickered across the billionaire's expression, unlocking a torrent of thoughts. Was he truly so far removed from his instincts that a simple, heartfelt suggestion from a man in a janitor's uniform could shake him to his core? As whispers of disbelief wrapped around the room, Alex's mind raced. He was a king in a palace built on ambition, yet here was a man whose wisdom emerged from experience rather than academic achievement. Could the insights of a laborer offer clarity in a world where numbers dictated the future? Alex felt a swell of guilt, recognizing how little he'd honored the values that once guided him. The laughter of family gatherings replaced by a relentless pursuit of power and prestige. Just then, a tightening in his chest reminded him of everything he'd sacrificed. The chiming of alarms rang in his head. Was his relentless ambition consuming everything he once loved? The juxtaposition of James's humility and his own towering ambition ignited a potent inner conflict. Just as he began to untangle the complexities that defined his life, a shocking connection unraveled, a familial bond extending beyond financial divide and prejudice, throwing the foundations of his carefully constructed world into chaos. In that acute moment of realization, Alex faced a looming question. Could he dismantle the barriers built by greed and ambition, trade them for a life steeped in connection and fulfillment? His mind wrestled with whether he could reclaim not just the business deal, but a chance at reconciliation and a deeper understanding of what it meant to thrive in a world so clearly divided. The question pulsed, demanding resolution, as the weight of his past hung heavily in the balance, casting shadows over his future. Would he let this pivotal moment dissolve into oblivion, or step boldly towards a path of true success? The answer was both thrilling and terrifying, keeping him teetering on the edge of choice, suspended in a storm of uncertainty, and waiting for his next move. The silence in the boardroom felt suffocating, wrapping around Alex like a thick fog. He glanced at the faces of the advisors, their skepticism turning into disdain as they absorbed James's unexpected intrusion. They had navigated the intricate world of finance for years, priding themselves on their instincts and education. Yet here was this janitor, a ghost from a different life, suggesting a return to authenticity and intuition. Alex's pulse quickened. A reflexive fear surged within him. Was he truly ready to abandon the surety of calculated moves and trends for the vulnerable honesty of instinct? Alex's internal battle escalated. Images of laughter and shared moments with his family surged to the forefront of his thoughts. Events he'd missed, milestones overlooked for the sake of yet another merger or acquisition. The glimmer of connection was inviting, almost intoxicating, but the gnawing fear of losing everything he had fought for gripped him tighter. What would happen if he made the wrong choice? The stakes felt higher than just money. They involved lives, his legacy, and far worse, the possibility of disconnection from the very ones he loved. In an impulsive move, he turned toward James, the symbol of a life less glamorous, yet rich in perspective. "What do you think I should do?" The question slipped out, an unfamiliar vulnerability laying bare his desperation. The room froze, a collective gasp filling the air. For Alex, it was as if he had stripped away the cloak of the CEO, revealing the man beneath, a man lost and in need of guidance. James, with his years of experience and humility, stepped forward, his voice steady. "Sometimes it's not about the numbers, Mr. Thompson. It's about knowing what feels right in your heart. You have a family. Don't let this deal take them away." Each word landed heavily, resonating with the silent truths Alex had buried under ambition. A shift began in Alex's mind, a reevaluation of his core values that blurred the lines of professional ambition and personal fulfillment. As Alex's eyes wandered around the room, he took in the sterile corporate decor, the diplomas framing the walls, the accolades hanging in silence. What was success if it led to isolation? He wondered. Could he reclaim the passion for technology that had ignited his journey? What challenges would he face if he turned his back on the expectations that had defined him for so long? Frankly, the answer was terrifying. He felt the weight of industry and tradition pressing down like an anchor, yet a flicker of defiance sparked inside him. He could either cling to the past or boldly probe into the unknown that lay, tantalizingly close. With newfound determination, Alex straightened his posture, embracing a clarity that pulsed through him. "Let's put that deal on hold," he declared, voice firm. "I need time to reflect, and I owe it to those who matter most to me." The shock on his advisors' faces painted a vivid picture of disbelief. Some shook their heads in disappointment, while others leaned back, their confidence shaken. Alex's declaration sent ripples through the room that could not be ignored. As he stepped back from the table, he realized he wasn't just changing course in business, but rewriting the narrative of his life. Walking out of the boardroom, Alex could feel an unfamiliar sense of freedom washing over him. Each step felt lighter, imbued with possibility as he moved toward the exit that led away from corporate chains. He knew now the journey ahead would be fraught with its own set of challenges, but there was no turning back. Suddenly, the sound of a rustling paper caught his attention. Before he could grasp its significance, an anonymous note slipped from beneath the door, an invitation to something unexpected. Immediately a twinge of anxiety gripped him once more. What lay behind that note? Could it be the next pivotal moment calling him forth? Would he embrace this new chapter and its unknown possibilities? The note lay unfurling at his feet, stark against the polished marble floor. Its presence felt heavy with implications, and yet Alex hesitated to reach for it, caught between curiosity and a reluctance to indulge in the unknown. The mundane, safe contours of his world beckoned him back, but something deeper stirred within him, a yearning to stretch beyond the confines of the life he had built, to explore who he might become when he wasn't shackled by expectations. A quick glance at the advisors, now jostled and whispering among themselves, reminded him of the fortress he'd spent years constructing. The thought of the note and its promise slid into the recesses of his mind as he wrestled with statuesque comfort. But even as he walked away from the boardroom, the soft crinkle of paper urged him onward. With a jolt, he knelt to retrieve the note. Unfolding it carefully, he could feel his heart race. It read simply, "The real challenge lies ahead. Meeting at Maple Cafe, 3 p.m. There was no signature, no indication of who had orchestrated this call to action. Yet he sensed a ripple of fate within the words. Was this the anonymous force pulling him away from the predictable path? He pondered the implications as he left the building, the city alive with movement around him, a stark contrast to the stagnant air of the boardroom. Each step to the cafe became a pilgrimage, a march toward his own evolution. As he threaded through the bustling streets, thoughts cascaded through his mind, each one a beckoning wave urging him to confront an uncomfortable truth. How often had he ignored the direction of his intrinsic motivations? Once at Maple Cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee embraced him. The quaint establishment, adorned with eclectic art and the steady hum of conversation, offered a more grounded atmosphere than the corporate halls he frequented. He found a corner table by the window, a spot that invited reflection, but also anxiety. Minutes passed, and with each tick of the clock, uncertainty thickened the air around him. He toyed with the idea of leaving, retreating to the familiar world where spreadsheets dominated discussions. Instead, he recalibrated his thoughts, pushing aside doubts. Whatever awaited him had the potential to be transformative. At precisely 3 p.m., the door swung open, and a familiar figure entered. It was James, the janitor from the boardroom. But there was a softness to his demeanor now, a reassuring warmth. Alex felt a mixture of gratitude and apprehension rise in his chest. This was the man whose unexpected wisdom had started cracking the hard shell of his corporate identity. "Seems like you took my advice," James said, sliding into the chair opposite him. There was a wisdom in his eyes that spoke of battles not fought in boardrooms. "More like I'm in a state of confusion," Alex admitted, letting out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. James chuckled lightly, disarming the tension. "Confusion can be a catalyst. You have to embrace it, Alex. The world you're in can't be the only one you trust. Doing what feels instinctively right will be vital." A barrier chipped away within Alex, a flicker of understanding igniting as he grappled with the deeper implications of James's words. It struck him that he had spent too long chasing validation rather than authenticity. This meeting could very well be pivotal, a point in his narrative where choice meetings consequence and a new version of himself could either bud or wither. "Why did you reach out to me?" he asked, searching James's face for clarity. "The world is bigger than what you see. You're teetering on a precipice, my friend. I can help you see what you can't yet envision." Alex leaned in, curiosity piquing. What did James see that he didn't? The promise of uncovering latent potential tingled beneath his skin. Yet the stakes were remarkably high. Failure loomed just as large as possibility. "Okay, tell me then. What's my real challenge?" James paused, collecting his thoughts as if weighing the gravity of his response. "The moment has come to face yourself, your past choices, your fears, and the truth of what you really want. Decide if you're willing to embrace them." The challenge surged through Alex's veins, fracturing old beliefs and molding a new sense of purpose. He could feel an unmistakable radical shift happening. As he prepared to explore this uncharted territory within himself, he remained teetering on the edge, ready to dive into the abyss of introspection and potential. What revelations awaited him in this deeper confrontation with his true self? No longer grounded in passivity, he found himself tangled in a spiral of anticipation, ready to leap. The sunlight filtered through the cafe's large windows, casting soft patterns on the table where Alex sat, the weight of James's words hanging heavily in the air. He felt the chair beneath him shift from a means of comfort to a rigid reminder of his stagnancy. For years, he had adhered to his routine like a mantra, believing it was the pathway to success. Yet now, as James studied him with an intent gaze, the fragile bubble he had encased himself in began to crack. "What does facing myself look like?" Alex asked, his voice shaking slightly. The vulnerability felt alien, but there was something liberating in exposing his uncertainty. James leaned back, a quiet confidence radiating from him. "It means peeling away the layers of expectation and pressure you've built around yourself. You've defined success by others' standards, but it's time to envision what it means for you." The room seemed to close in around Alex, the clatter of cups and murmurs of conversation fading into a dull hum. The air thickened with the realization that he had relied too heavily on external validation, financial achievements, promotions, accolades. But beneath that facade lay layers upon layers of unexamined desires and passions he had buried deep within. What did he truly want? The question churned relentlessly in his mind. Each pulse of anxiety echoed with every tick of the cafe clock. What if he had been wrong all along? He observed James, the janitor who understood the essence of the human experience in ways his corporate peers never could. How do I discover what I really want? Alex pressed, his voice now a mix of desperation and hope. James offered a subtle smile. You start by reframing your fears. Ask yourself, what are the stories you tell yourself that limit your potential? Identify them. Write them down. Then challenge their validity. Are they your truths or just echoes of others' opinions? Alex took a deep breath, picturing himself alone with a pen and paper, jotting down the narratives that had defined him. The fear of failure, the urge to conform to societal norms, the relentless pressure to succeed by someone else's blueprint. Each thought felt like a brick he had used to build a wall around himself. It made sense. He had crafted a life where every achievement felt hollow, a trophy devoid of personal meaning. What if I can't change? He murmured, a flicker of doubt creeping in. That's a choice too, James replied simply, leaning forward, his eyes locking onto Alex's. The risk of staying the same is often greater than the fear of changing. But understand, transformation requires courage and commitment. You're standing at a fork in the road. Choose wisely. Alex's heart raced at the prospect of a different existence, shaped by his own hands, defining success on his own terms. It was intoxicating, yet terrifying. Would he have the stamina to break from expectations even if it meant disappointing those around him? James pulled a small notebook from his pocket and slid it across the table. Take this. Start cataloging your thoughts, your fears, your dreams. It'll be the first step in reclaiming your narrative. He hesitated, fingers brushing against the worn cover as if it were a talisman. The act of writing felt like both a declaration of war against his past and a beacon guiding him toward an uncharted future. Meet me here next week, James continued, encouragement lining his voice. We'll talk again. Make a commitment to yourself, Alex. Tackle one fear at a time. See what happens when you dare to own your truth. The concept of commitment hung in the balance between Alex's fear of the unknown and desire for authenticity. He could feel the momentum building within him, a cascade of determination cutting through the fog of self-doubt. Okay, I'll do it, he replied firmly, a sensation of resolve tinting his voice with newfound clarity. As they stood to leave, the brief encounter felt monumental. Alex glanced back at the notebook, a tangible representation of the change he was willing to embrace. The cafe door swung behind him. His world felt altered. The bustling street now alive with possibilities. What awaited him in that notebook? Could a simple act of reflection unearth hidden facets of his identity? In that moment of resolve, he felt a shift within, but just as quickly as his resolve surged, so did the worry about what awaited him in the confrontation of self. As the week stretched out before him, Alex wondered, was he truly ready to face the darkness hiding behind the walls he had constructed? Alex returned home, the notebook pressed tightly against his chest, a capstone of his commitment. He placed it on his desk amidst a clutter of accolades, reminders of a life frantically chased, but never truly owned. The sight of it anchored him, yet the room felt suffocating, filled with reminders that were both familiar and suffocating. He sat at the desk, staring at the blank pages. Each turn of the page felt like an invitation and an accusation. Would each word expose an uncomfortable truth? A splash of defiance mingled with trepidation bubbled beneath his surface. No longer could he ignore the fissures forming within his carefully managed identity. Taking a deep breath, he opened the notebook, its first page pristine white and mocking. What was he afraid to admit? His heart raced as he thought about what genuinely mattered to him. What did success mean beyond the titles and the financial security? He grasped the pen like a lifeline, letting the ink flow freely, unfiltered. With a shaky hand, he wrote, I fear I'm not living for myself. The weight of it sank deep. He paused to consider his truth. His desires had been dimmed beneath societal expectations, like a flame starved of oxygen. What if he explicitly owned that fear? Next, he wrote down, I fear I'm not good enough, contesting the internal monologue that had driven him into ceaseless competition. What if his greatest competition was himself? The urgency surged within him, allowing an ember of courage to ignite his thoughts. The truth bubbled forth, clearer and more visceral. I want to write. The words sent jolts of exhilaration and panic through him. How absurd it felt, imagining a life where the act of creation was not just a fleeting whim. Could writing truly be a calling? Would he disappoint everyone who envisioned him as a corporate titan? He pressed onward, pen moving fervently across the page, transcribing thoughts he had long relegated to the shadows. Memories of short stories tucked away, poetry scribbled on crumpled napkins, and the way words could paint vivid worlds ignited something dormant. As the ink dried, Alex felt unshackled from the expectations that had governed him. This was the beginning of redefining who he was. With every breath, his pulse synchronized with his awakening. But then, as he leaned back, a familiar dread crept in. What would it mean to pursue these revelations? Turning back to the page, he jotted an honorable acknowledgement. I fear speaking my truth. The words hung in the air, weighted with the enormity of accountability. Facing himself meant confronting the judgments of his colleagues, the expectations of family, but also the honor of living authentically. Suddenly, he remembered James's words. Challenge your fears. Authenticity is more than a buzzword. It's a lifestyle that could either liberate or isolate him. Alex breathed in sharp clarity. It was now or never. The next confrontation waited. How would he express this evolution without judgment? He steeled himself, knowing the next week would require more than simple words on a page. Would he bring this transient rebellion to light or retreat back into the safety of convention? He looked out the window, the city alive with the ceaseless hum of ambition. Each person passing by had their own battles, their own fears, and perhaps they too were craving a summit of self-acceptance. With determination taking root, Alex closed the notebook, feeling lighter yet more determined than ever. The flicker of excitement danced within him as he envisioned the following week's meeting with James. Would he dare to read from his notebook? Could he unleash these raw revelations without the veil of his previous identity? The thought electrified him, urging him to prepare. The confrontation with self loomed closer, ready to peel back the remaining layers of the man he had been, while exposing the essence of who he could become. As the dawn broke the following morning, Alex's heart raced with anticipation and uncertainty. He had spent an hour tossing and turning, the notion of revealing his true self keeping sleep at bay. Every shadow on the wall became a reflection of his inner dialogue. Each creak of the house felt like a whisper of doubt urging him to retreat. Yet with each tick of the clock, an ember of resolve solidified within him. Sitting at his desk, the notebook lay open before him. Words swam in his mind like fish darting between the barriers of a cage. He knew that this meeting with James wasn't just about sharing his thoughts. It was the moment to communicate the essence of who he was becoming. Yet, exposing his vulnerabilities meant risking the identity he had spent years crafting. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply. What did he truly want from this exchange? It wasn't accolades or approval that stirred him. It was the pursuit of authenticity, the thrill of upheaval. The urge to articulate his aspirations was an itch he couldn't ignore. He began listing what he wanted to convey. I want to find my voice, he scribbled. I want to stop pretending. Each statement chipped away at the burden he had carried for so long. It felt liberating, even as his hands trembled at the notion of sharing these thoughts with someone else. The day loomed ahead, an assembly of familiar faces, colleagues whose perceptions had painted the canvas of his corporate existence. Each interaction was underscored with an unspoken hierarchy. He envisioned the sterile conference room illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights, the conference table cluttered with papers and coffee cups. Would these very props assist or hinder his self-disclosure? Arriving early, Alex prepared himself with a cup of coffee and a deep breath. He noticed the usual buzz of colleagues settling in, engaging in casual banter that felt so foreign to him now. They seemed untouched by the tumult that churned endlessly within him. As James walked in, his presence commanded attention without a word. "Morning, folks. Let's get rolling," James announced, a beacon of confidence. As the meeting commenced, Alex's mind flickered between the dialogue unfolding around him and deeper currents of fear and excitement. Would he ever find the right moment to disrupt the rhythm of executive banter with his personal truths? Halfway through the meeting, a small window of opportunity surfaced. James turned to him, inviting his input on a project strategy. It was instantaneous, like the world stilling around them as Alex opened his mouth. What burst forth was unexpected, a barrage of thoughts about passion versus obligation. "And the thing is, I've realized," he began, the words tumbling out, each one a step closer to the vulnerability he yearned to express. As he spoke, the eyes of his colleagues bore down like hot searchlights, judging, analyzing. This was the moment where he had to face not just their expectations, but his own fears. His pulse quickened, sweat gathered at the base of his neck. He could return to the silence or break free. "I want to write," he uttered finally, puncturing the tension with his truth. The silence that followed felt deafening, a breath held, a moment suspended in disbelief. Would he find encouragement or condescension in their reactions? The question lingered, tightening around his chest. As he scanned the faces, he saw a mix of reactions. Some brows furrowed, others curious, a few skeptical. Yet, a flicker of acknowledgement passed over James's features, a glimmer that suggested understanding. The fight within him coalesced. The tension in the room shifted. "We all have dreams," Alex continued, gaining momentum. "Dreams we bury in the name of responsibility." His voice steadied as he allowed his emotions to flow into his words. As the meeting progressed, he kept challenging himself, opening up further, addressing the assumptions and fears he had just begun to confront. Would this surge of honesty lead to acceptance? Or would it fracture the foundational image he had constructed over the years? Just as he felt grounded in his resolve, a question landed like a weight. But what if your pursuit of writing fails? How does that reflect on you as a leader? Each word felt like a strike at the core of his newfound identity, doubts clawing for dominance. Did he dare to face the worst-case scenario, that he might falter? The time had come to wrestle with the ultimate invitation, to maintain authenticity amidst the unforgiving realities of professional expectations. With the room buzzing with varying responses, Alex understood he had opened a door, one that couldn't easily close. What lay on the other side? A tumultuous journey filled with risk? Or perhaps an unforeseen freedom? Alex's heart was still racing, his palms damp against the polished wood of the conference table. The question had reverberated in his mind like a tolling bell, a haunting echo of every fear he had ever entertained. What if your pursuit of writing fails? Was more than just a challenge. It was an accusation that questioned his very mettle as a professional. The atmosphere in the room had transformed. Colleagues shifted in their seats, a low murmur replacing the previous confidence. The air was electric, laden with what felt like a jury waiting to render judgment. He could sense a new kind of scrutiny. This was no longer about performance metrics or quarterly goals. This was personal. Failure, he pondered, grappling with the word like a weight. He had spent years climbing the corporate ladder, building a robust identity marked by leadership and success. What would it mean to admit to faltering? Yet, standing at that precipice, he felt something shift, a flicker of resilience igniting within him. The very act of claiming his truth had made him feel unshackled, even momentarily, from the weight of expectation. Failure is not final, Alex found himself declaring, surprising even himself. It's a stepping stone, an opportunity to grow. The room went silent, save for a few hushed exchanges among his colleagues. Suddenly, he wasn't just combating their skepticism, he was confronting his own long-buried beliefs about success. James nodded, a soft smile breaking through the facade, almost as if he understood the weight of the struggle. "What do you think it would mean for you, personally and professionally, to pursue this passion?" he asked gently, as if probing for something deeper. "Honestly?" Alex took a moment to let the sincerity of his response sink in, drawing strength from the moment. "It means reconnecting with who I am outside this corporate identity I've worn like armor. It's about being honest with myself. It's about reclaiming my narrative rather than having it dictated by job titles and expectations." Before he could reconsider, words poured from him in a torrent, each syllable both liberating and grounding. "I want to write because it allows me to convey the stories and ideas that matter to me in ways that are raw and truthful," It's not just a hobby, it's a part of who I am. Immediate silence fell over the gathering, punctuated only by a single brave clap from Amelia, the junior analyst who had always shared a passion for creative pursuits. Slowly, others joined in, though the applause felt tentative. It was the recognition that some were beginning to grapple with the shift he had incited. Alex's heart swelled with an unfamiliar warmth. In that electrifying moment, he caught a glimpse of what could lie ahead. More vulnerability, greater risks, but also the tantalizing prospect of true connection between him and his colleagues, perhaps paving the way for collaboration grounded in authenticity rather than mere corporate obligation. But then reality invaded once more, bringing forth the weight of potential consequences. Would his boldness usher in a new way of engagement within their business culture? Or would this admission open him up to further scrutiny, perhaps costing him the very stability he had fought so hard to establish? As the meeting wrapped up, Alex found himself preoccupied not with the uncertain answers, but with invigorating questions. What if he dared to push beyond this point, to explore uncharted territories, not only in his work, but within himself? With each passing moment, he felt the pulse of something transformative lurking just beneath the surface. He watched others disperse, some voicing their thoughts, others retreating back to their former selves, unsure how to reconcile this new aspect of him. Where do you go from here? He thought as he gathered his materials, ready to step out into a world that suddenly felt open yet daunting. Alex stood at a crossroads, not just between two realities, career and passion, but at the very intersection of identity and authenticity. Could he navigate this newfound path without losing all he had built? And as he prepared to leave the conference room, one thing gnawed at him: the nagging sense that the hardest battles were yet to come. What awaited him in the uncharted territories of authenticity, where pursuit of passion collided with expectations? He breathed in deeply, steadying himself for what felt like the beginning of a new journey, one that might demand everything he had to give. The time had come to truly face himself. He had only just begun to unravel the complexities of who he was meant to be. What revelations lay just beyond the horizon of his truth? The next morning, Alex stood in front of the bathroom mirror, the weight of yesterday's revelations still fresh. He could see the remnants of uncertainty shadowing his reflection, a man caught between two worlds. As he splashed water on his face, he realized that today was different. It was a fresh canvas, waiting for him to apply bold strokes of authenticity. With a twinge of excitement mixed with apprehension, he headed to the office, every step echoing the desire to forge a new path. The hallway buzzed with the daily rhythm of corporate life, but the sounds around him felt distant, muffled. His mind was centered on the possibilities that lay ahead, what it might take to stand behind his truth despite the implications. Arriving at his desk, he scrolled through emails habitually, yet their content now appeared flat, uninspiring. The verbiage of corporate jargon felt inadequate for his heightened sense of purpose. He imagined his boss, Rebecca, meeting him with puzzled eyes after their last conversation. Would she see him as a risk, or perhaps as an unexpected asset? Alex! Her voice sliced through the haze of his thoughts. He turned to find her leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, an expression of mild curiosity breaking her usual business-like demeanor. "Can we talk?" she asked, her tone serious. "I want to discuss your perspective on our upcoming project." Alex nodded slowly, heart tightening. "Of course," he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. They settled into the conference room, a stark contrast to the day before. This time, the air felt thick with anticipation. As they discussed project parameters, Alex searched for openings to share his renewed vision, to inject creativity into their strategy, but the words eluded him. He was still tethered to his previous persona, fragmented between roles. "Your insights on innovation could really elevate our game," Rebecca stated, her tone encouraging yet probing. "Maybe you could take charge of the team's creative direction?" The suggestion hung in the air, a challenge teetering on the edge. Yet Alex hesitated, fear creeping back like a ghost. What if pushing boundaries meant facing more judgment? Was he ready to step that far out into the discomfort? "Actually, I've been thinking," he started, but his voice faltered as he questioned the worth of his ideas. What if failure loomed like a dark cloud, casting shadows over his aspirations? "About what?" Her gaze was steady, expectant. Building courage, he took a breath. "I believe we should explore new storytelling approaches in our marketing. Stories that resonate deeply, that allow us to connect more holistically with our audience." "Interesting," Rebecca remarked, jotting down notes. She paused, studying him. "And how do you propose we do that?" As he outlined his vision, ideas began to flow, fueled by the very vulnerability that once terrified him. Each suggestion sparkled with the potential for authenticity and connection, his passion glittering through professional constraints. Yes, this was his territory now. Even if the realm was fraught with uncertainty, it was also alive with possibilities. "Let's pilot this with a smaller team to get feedback," she decided, her enthusiasm infectious. It felt like a mantle being placed on Alex's shoulders, heavy but promising. As they wrapped up, Alex's heart raced, not from anxiety but from the exhilaration of his decision. He had stepped onto a more genuine path, a confrontation with his own limits and barriers. Yet amidst the clarity was a new layer of conflict brewing, the realization that not everyone would share his vision. What about the colleagues he used to navigate through corporate pathways? Would they embrace the shift, or would they push back against the unfamiliarity? With thoughts swirling in his head, Alex made his way back to his desk. The stakes were rising, and he was at the center of this tumultuous evolution, not just in the business, but within himself. The way forward had taken shape, but he knew there were further challenges ahead. Standing at the threshold of change, he succumbed to the tantalizing doubt, knowing he needed to confront resistance both inside and outside. Could he withstand the inevitable challenges this new direction would summon? More importantly, would his colleagues rally behind him, or retreat back into familiar patterns of doubt? Alex exhaled, feeling both the thrill and trepidation of uncharted waters as he prepared for the next chapter of his journey. The tension crackled in the air, a reminder that the battles for authenticity were far from over. What awaited him as he dared to inspire change among his peers? The following day dawned bright and clear, but Alex felt an undercurrent of storm clouds forming on the horizon of his mind. He had shared his ideas boldly, but now came the hard part, executing his vision, navigating through the uncertain waters of corporate hierarchy, and, worst of all, managing the varied responses of his peers. His desk felt more like a battleground than a workspace. The results of his ambitious pitch lingered in the atmosphere, clashing against the backdrop of familiar traditions. Walking the halls, he caught snippets of conversations. His colleagues spoke in low tones, casting glances his way, the undercurrents of gossip creeping into every interaction. Had he given them too much of a shake-up too soon? He could overhear snippets like, "Does he really think this will work?" and "Not everyone is on board with this." Each whispered phrase pulled at a thread of insecurity he thought he had begun to unravel. Was he a leader or a fool daring to challenge the status quo? Alex paused, staring out of the window at the busy street below. He took a deep breath, willing himself to regain focus. Change was never without resistance, a lesson he needed to embrace. He couldn't dwell in doubt. He had to devise a strategy to galvanize his colleagues, to persuade them to take risks alongside him. The first step came with inviting a few members of the marketing team to his office for an informal brainstorm. It was a gamble, but he believed collaboration might ease the trepidation his bold ideas had inspired. He set the stage for dialogue, ensuring the environment felt welcoming, sowed with opportunities for contribution rather than demands. As they gathered, Alex watched their faces early on for cracks of interest or apprehension. "I know this feels different," he began, gauging their reactions. "But it's the perfect moment to redefine how we connect with our audience. New ideas require us to be brave, but bravery is born out of collaboration." Slowly, hands began to rise. They tossed around unconventional concepts, bouncing ideas off one another, reconnecting with why they joined the industry in the first place. Their passion for storytelling. Alex felt the energy in the room shift, a burgeoning momentum igniting the discussions. Okay, let's refine this, he insisted, digging deeper into reshaping their project framework and practical execution. He pointed out existing barriers, but framed them not as stop signs, but as hurdles to vault over together. Suddenly a voice piped up, breaking through the flow. It was Mia, a senior designer. What if we created immersive experiences, something that combines digital with in-person engagement? The room fell silent, each person contemplating the suggestion. Alex realized the potential radiating within them. It wasn't just the original ideas that needed their attention. It was the added insights that came from embracing vulnerability, allowing authenticity to take the lead. As the conversation flowed, the walls of resistance began to crumble. Ideas flourished, igniting a spark. They could involve their audience in the narrative, giving them agency in the story, enabling deep connection, not just a sale. Weeks passed and a sense of excitement replaced his anxiety, yet, in the back of his mind, doubt still loitered. He knew the true challenge was yet to come. As focus shifted from brainstorming to developing the project into a cohesive experience, he felt the weight of expectation. Breaking the mold of tradition could backfire. Despite the growing camaraderie among his colleagues, he feared any missteps would lead to a surge of criticism. Determination took hold. Alex decided to present a draft of their concept to Rebecca, seeking her insights before formalizing anything for a broader audience. It was time to test his ideas against her seasoned perspectives, to ensure they adhered to the expectations of their brand while remaining provocative and fresh. Moments before the meeting, the jitters returned, but he dismissed them with renewed resolve. Each heartbeat reinforced his commitment to tackling this uncertainty head-on. Finally, he walked into the conference room with his head high, ready for whatever followed. As Rebecca's probing gaze settled on him, Alex sensed the weight of his ambition resting squarely on his shoulders. Would she embrace this evolution, or would his risk-propelling innovation lead to judgment? The door closed behind him, and he understood. Today was not just about presenting ideas. It would redefine the path ahead, either solidifying his direction or throwing him back into chaos. What awaited him in that room? Would Rebecca's feedback fortify his ambitions, or shake the very foundation of his newfound confidence? Alex took a deep breath as the silence wrapped around him, the palpable tension between him and Rebecca thrumming like a live wire. He set his laptop on the conference table and opened the presentation with determined fingers. This was more than just a pitch. It was the manifestation of his journey, a concrete step into the unknown that he had cautiously navigated over the past weeks. "Thank you for meeting with me, Rebecca," he began, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his chest. "I believe we're standing on the brink of something transformative in how we engage our audience." He launched into the presentation, passionate energy pulsing through every word as he articulated the new, immersive approach the team had conceptualized. With each slide, he described the fusion of storytelling and audience interaction that felt like a fresh breath after a long confinement. He highlighted their research, the input of the team, and the collaborative ethos that had ignited a creative fire in them all. As he spoke, he could see Rebecca's interest peaking, her brow furrowing thoughtfully. He pressed on, presenting case studies that illustrated trends shifting towards this new wave of marketing, a craving for deeper connections and authenticity. When he finished, the silence filled the room once again, hanging like a heavy curtain. Rebecca leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, a common posture that once would have sent shivers of anxiety through him. But today, he held his ground, waiting for her response. "I appreciate your boldness, Alex," she began, her tone measured yet inviting. "Shifting our approach in such a significant way will take effort and dedication." "Yes," he replied, enthusiasm blossoming at the assurance she still offered. "But if we succeed, we're not just selling a product. We're creating a community around it." Rebecca nodded, her expression revealing wrestling thoughts he dared to interpret as consideration rather than skepticism. "I'm interested, but I think we need to take this to our next board meeting for feedback. You understand the resistance that may arise?" "Absolutely." A wave of relief washed over him. "Building the right alliances will be crucial." but I believe if we prepare the narrative strategically, we can overcome any doubt. Then let's refine this together. Alex smiled, a sense of validation swelling within him, the kind of validation that reaffirmed he had indeed drastically transformed over these weeks. As days transformed into tireless hours of preparation, Alex felt adrenaline coursing through him. He navigated the complexities of aligning feedback from various departments, tempering hesitation, and crafting an authentic vision that resonated with everyone involved. Resistance came, of course, but with each pushback he found himself more resolved, not deterred but encouraged to strengthen the core he had discovered within, bolstered by unwavering support from his team. Board meeting day arrived, and the atmosphere was thick with anticipation, his heart racing in time with the tapping of shoes on polished tile. As the team assembled, it struck him how far they had come, how collaboration had stitched together a powerful tapestry of creativity that would weave through the foundation of their brand. Alex took a deep breath as the chairperson introduced his team. "Alex, the floor is yours." He stepped forward, poised and confident, ready to pour his heart into the presentation. He recounted their journey, underscoring the importance of authenticity and the courage it took to navigate their own insecurities for the sake of progress. He shared the immersive experience plans, outlining how they had paved the path for a new kind of storytelling, where customers would not only observe but actively participate. As he spoke, he watched various expressions flicker across the faces of board members: intrigue, skepticism, even admiration. Each gasp, each nod, reinforced that his vulnerability and pursuit of authenticity had struck chords they hadn't expected to feel within the confines of their traditionally cutthroat industry. Finally, as he wrapped up with a hopeful, resonating call to action, the room erupted, not in silence, but in murmured conversations, some praising, others questioning, all engaged. "Let's take a vote," the chairperson finally said, casting the deciding moment. A countermeasure to shift towards innovation had arrived, and within it, Alex felt his resolve formalize into a tangible outcome. When the announcement came through, it echoed in his heart. The board had approved the immersive campaign. The applause rushed through him as he felt like a weight had lifted, one that had burdened his spirit since he had dived into this journey. Afterward, as he walked out into the open, a warm breeze tousled his hair, a contrast to the pinching anxiety that had hung like shortening days over his journey. He found James waiting nearby, his familiar figure a grounding presence amidst the chaos. "Congratulations," James said, his smile broad. "I couldn't have done it without your encouragement and advice," Alex replied earnestly, feeling the connection between them strengthen. "Still just the beginning, my friend." James nodded, a light shyness about him. "Keep listening to your heart. You're onto something special." For the first time, Alex recognized the completeness in this exchange. He had stepped off the well-trodden path long enough to appreciate the view of a journey aligned with his true self. With renewed confidence, he embarked on the next chapter, not just as a leader in his industry, but as a man who had conquered his fears, unlocked his passion, and had finally committed to authenticity as his compass. This newfound perspective was not a destination, it was a continuous evolution, and as he embraced that trajectory, he felt empowered to inspire others, both individually and professionally. The sun dipped low in the sky, a bright golden hue painting the city. Alex walked forward, every step fueled by the weight of his achievement and the promise of freedom, crafted and earned, inviting him toward the horizon of opportunities that awaited him. And now, as you ponder this extraordinary journey of transformation, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You have the chance to be part of this journey of personal growth, so leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread these powerful narratives. Join the conversation. Comment your reactions and theories about Alex's journey and how it resonated with you personally. Don't wait even one more second to share this video. Spread the message and share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. The power of individual transformation is a testament to what we can all achieve.